This video tutorial is all about the carbon cycle. Now, on the slide in front of you is an image of a single carbon atom. And hopefully this looks pretty familiar to you from your lessons in chemistry. Now, carbon is an atom that is commonly found in all sorts of different molecules. In the atmosphere, for example, carbon joins onto two oxygens to form carbon dioxide. Carbon is found in our rocks, for example, limestone rocks. Carbon can be found in all living things as it forms the absolute foundation of things like our proteins and our fats. So we can see carbon all over the place in living and non-living things. Now, there are two key processes involved in the carbon cycle. The first one's shown there on the slide, which is photosynthesis. And hopefully, again, you are all well familiar with this by now. In photosynthesis, we see the conversion of carbon dioxide and water into glucose and oxygen. In this particular diagram, the carbon atoms are represented by red circles. So in the carbon dioxide molecule, for example, we have one carbon atom, whereas in glucose, we have 6 carbons. Within the carbon cycle, what we see is the carbon molecules or atoms even being broken apart and put back together in all sorts of different forms. It's a little bit like playing Lego. It's like Lego bricks. You put them together and break them apart, and the carbon cycle is literally just following the story of a single carbon atom through all of its different forms. So here's quite a nice basic picture of the carbon cycle, or at least part of the carbon cycle. We'll begin the journey by talking about carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. The carbon dioxide in the atmosphere will be taken in by plants through that process of photosynthesis. That is how plants produce their food or create their glucose. Animals or consumers will then eat those plants. So, for example, the cow on the slide there will eat some of the grass, eat some of the tree leaves. And in doing so, the carbon within the plant will become incorporated within the cow. Now, animals eat animals, and in doing so, we see that carbon being passed through the food chains. Both plants and animals respire. All living things respire. When we respire, we convert glucose and oxygen into carbon dioxide and water. And in doing so, we're moving that carbon from its sort of glucose form and releasing it as carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere. When we stop respiring and die, our dead material, the dead organic matter, is going to be decomposed. And when we decompose, the carbon that forms so much of what we are, our material, will become incorporated into the soils. In the oceans, when organisms die, and their sort of skeletons, for example, if we think about a fish, fall down to the bottom of the oceans, those skeletons can fossilize and become part of that sediment. They're converted into rock. And that's how also things like oil and natural gas form, so our fossil fuels. When we burn fossil fuels, so in the process of combustion, we're taking those fossil fuels, which have the carbon base, and again, we are releasing carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. One of the big problems we face today is that the carbon cycle, which normally is so beautifully balanced, is becoming out of balance. It takes millions and millions and millions of years to get the carbon locked into fossil fuels. However, since the Industrial Revolution, it has taken split seconds for us to then burn all those fossil fuels, or lots of the fossil fuels, and convert the carbon back into the carbon dioxide form. So in this image, you can see, I guess deforestation is being semi-represented. We've got the cars burning fuel. We've got the factories burning fuel. And in doing so, we are causing a mass imbalance in our carbon cycles. Now, the problem is we end up with way more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide is one of the greenhouse gases. And the result of that is that we are ending up trapping more and more of the sun's energy into the Earth's atmosphere. And that is what's causing our global warming. Here is just one more diagram of the carbon cycle, just to show lots of these processes again. Here you can see photosynthesis being the key process by which carbon dioxide gets taken out of the atmosphere and is locked into sort of organic forms. You've got the processes of respiration being labelled there. So we've got animal respiration and plant respiration. That process of respiration releasing carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere. You've also got decomposition being shown. So dead organisms and waste products are labelled, as well as combustion, as we've got the factory emissions, which release carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere as well. So you need to be familiar with these key processes within the carbon cycle.